To the death of a grade 2 learner who allegedly committed suicide at a Mpumalanga primary school last week, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group says that more needs to be done to raise awareness about suicidal children. 9-year-old Lebo Maseko was found hanging from a school swing on Friday with a tunic belt tied around his neck. SADAG, the Depression and Anxiety Group, says the suicide rate for children aged 10 to 14 years of age has more than doubled over the past 15 years. SABC News spoke earlier to a clinical psychologist for SADAG, Liane Lurie.
It is something that is certainly on the rise. And obviously it's a tragic statistic, because those children are not just numbers. They have families, they have friends that are left behind who grapple to find an explanation as to why this actually happened.
The statistic that bothered me is that children between the ages of 10 and 14, the suicide rate has doubled in the last 15 years. What are some of the contributing factors here, you think?
So look, I think that certainly our family structures have changed on one level. I think that both parents are required to work, and so children may be left without supervision. You also have child-headed households. There may also be a family history of depression and suicide or suicide attempts. I think that the pressure on children to succeed academically and the pressure to obviously, to ultimately perform in the workplace is there as well. I think that very often the signs of depression or irritable behavior within the child may be missed. And that's also because certain children may not have the ability to actually vocalize what's going on. Perhaps they've been subjected to some kind of trauma. They may also be the victims of bullying or cyberbullying. And it may be that behavior which parents may see as rebellious may actually be that the child is calling out for help.
Now, what can be done about suicides that do not have those obvious suicide signs that parents might be, or teachers might be able to see?
So look, I think that we need to work on a systemic level. We need to create more awareness for both parents, teachers, other relevant stakeholders in terms of what to look out for. Essentially we say to parents, you are the experts on your child's level of functioning. If you notice any change, don't be afraid to ask the question. And also create open forums, even if there's not something that you're worried about. Check in on your child. What's happening at school? What's happening within their social and friendship group? What are they being exposed to online? Also, the other thing to also realize is that both children and teenagers may be prone to impulsive behavior. If a child, for example, has not been taught to cope with a sense of failure or something not working out, are they prone to act impulsively, or are they going to look for help? Very often a child or a teenager may seek means to relieve distress that can often have devastating consequences.
Let's take a look at the issue of Lebo Maseko, who was found hanging from a school swing with a tunic around his neck. Is that perhaps an accident, or is this suicide? What is your conclusion at the end, SADAG?
Look, I think it's very, very hard to make a final judgment on what the circumstances were. Very often with children, suicides appear to be an accident. It's almost easier for those left behind to rationalize it and say, okay, they were playing around, they were experimenting. However, I think that what this tragedy also shows is that children actually do understand that death is permanent.
Yes.
And very often a child may have endured some kind of trauma or been exposed to something untoward, and they may feel that they're not able to talk about it. And for them, that seems like the only way out.
Let's not talk about teens, because sometimes teens could experiment in different ways.
Yes.
Now, a teen that has previously attempted suicide, are they more at risk, or the highest at risk in that category, perhaps?
They are definitely more at risk. I think that if that has been a means by which they seek to, seek relief, or they seek to end their lives, that teen definitely has to be observed more closely for any further risk-taking behavior. We also need to look at the teen and see, has there been a history of self-harming behavior? Has there been a history of experimenting, let's say, with drugs and alcohol? You know, what have they been exposed to via social media? I mean, most recently, there's a controversy in America over the Netflix movie 13 Reasons Why.
Yes.
And how it almost sensationalizes suicide, and as a result, are there teenagers that were thinking about suicide that then are given the impetus to try? And then on the other hand, there also may be teenagers then who've been contemplating suicide, and as a result, they're not able to reach out for help.
Now, detection is always great beforehand, because afterwards it's a complete, you don't even want to go into that. But do all suicides or suicidal people talk about their potential suicide before they do it?
Some people don't. And I think that it's important to also to listen to the content of what your child or teen may be saying. You know, are they starting to give away things that previously had sentimental value to them? You know, are they talking as if life has no future? They can't see the future. They don't have hope. And other times, if somebody really wants to go through with it, and I think it's a very, very hard thing to come to terms with, they may not talk about it.
Yes.